Uh, Thank you very much. Thanks, Tony. And perhaps I ought to make it clear that my experience of Ireland isn't definitive, and what I'm going to offer you is a British perspective, but I hope that there are some lessons to be learned. I've made a number of visits to Ireland, but as most of them sort of coincided with St Patrick's Day, I don't think I spent a great deal of time during that period studying the intricacies of Irish local government at the time, although I did enjoy my experiences. And I think the other lesson I've learned from talking to other countries is that the British experience is not always of the best, and I perhaps can highlight in what I'm going to say some of the difficulties in dealing with the situation rather than necessarily solutions. I've also ought to mention that Salford has hosted a couple of delegations from Irish local government as well, which seemed surprisingly to coincide with home games of Manchester United. But nevertheless, I think we've had some interesting experiences of dealing with the issues and explaining some of the problems that we've faced. So what are key cities? Well, I suppose we would accept that we are small and medium-sized cities in British terms, although some of us might be quite large in Irish terms. And we're a group of 25 cities and places, which is a cross-party partnership of councils trying to work as a united voice for working with government. So we're a varied group of authorities. We range from size from Bradford with its 400,000 to Lincoln with its 50,000. But one of the things I think drives us is our belief in enterprise and entrepreneurship from local government. Our job is not simply just to passively administer the system, but to shape our experiences as well. And so from that point of view, you know, we think that what we do is critical to the future, particularly post-COVID. We're very clear that COVID is obviously been a disaster for us, but it also means that what we can't create is simply a replication of what we had beforehand. We need to change some significant things that we've been doing in the UK and to move forward. And we are particularly concerned, and I thought the last contribution was very resonant to me, and I learned a lot from it, about urban centres, because we believe that the urban centres of our country are key drivers for future regeneration, but it's also something that happens outside what we define as core cities, which are the extremely large conurbations which many of us have on our doorstep. And so we are concerned about the urban centre as not just a crucial part of our local economy, but also as a way of taking forward the demands of the national economy. So we also accept that our town centres, our retail centres, were under long-term decline in our country, not just as a result of the pandemic and the closure of retail opportunity, but also because people are shifting in terms of what they actually want to see from their centres. And later on, I'm going to show you some slides about what our members have been trying to do. But it has been a crucial driving force for us, what has actually happened under the pandemic, meaning that retail, long-term retail, we think is probably going to decline unless it's a very specialist retail trade. And business and trade is going to hopefully pick up some of the slack, and also residential opportunities. Of course, thanks to the size of our cities, any investment can have a much wider and quicker impact. then that's applied to their larger counterparts. So funding that is applied can be extremely effective. And one of the crucial points in terms of our lobbying work with central government is how the key cities can ensure that their desired initiatives have a much quicker impact than, say, Birmingham, Manchester, or London. So we had something called Future High Streets Funding, which was about trying to transform our urban cores and to try and deliver a different way of using our towns and city centres. So if I can give you a couple of examples, Sunderland got a £25 million grant to spend on projects to do with Riverside and to remodel the boulevard to connect the city centre to the Riverside. Wolverhampton's receiving nearly 16 million to turn 38 acres into a new urban quarter. Portsmouth is working on key sites around the port and developing co-working and community spaces. And Plymouth, Medway and Carlisle are also standing to benefit from significant grants. So all of that is about the work that we're doing in terms of trying to transform our town and city centres. We've also been very conscious to try and develop our policies along green travel. It's a particular problem, obviously the use of the motor car and the lack of investment in the UK in public transport. And so therefore we're spending an awful lot of money and lobbying for money from the government's Active Travel Fund to promote cycling, to promote the greater use of public bus transport in particular, and trying to integrate it into a train and rail system. So the DFT, Department for Transport, published a report on the challenge of decarbonising transport in the UK. And one of the things we're lobbying for is for that money to be devolved down to local authorities to support the decarbonation of transport. Now, housing is another crucial issue for us. Housing, key cities, we believe, are great places for people to live in terms of the opportunities that urban living offer, both in terms of cultural opportunities, but also in terms of leisure opportunities. And key cities are cheaper for households, more affordable than the biggest cities for house renters and buyers. And with more time being spent at home, people are looking for more space. So one of the things we're doing is about marketing our smaller cities to show that we have a better offer for people than simply living, say, in the centre of Manchester. And the recent changes to working patterns, I think, has given us an opportunity to build a greater sense of communities for those residents and to argue that we're cheaper for house builders and offer more growth potential. And the other opportunity, if I could say so, to architects is that there's far more opportunity for working in key cities in the sense that they tend to be more responsive to new ideas, tend to be looking for innovation, and tend to be areas that you can have a greater spread of land and opportunity. Now, one of our biggest arguments is there's not enough affordable housing in England and Wales, not for buyers, not for renters. And one of the things that we've been trying to argue with government is that we can be one of the engine rooms of new development and opportunity. And Norwich, for example, one of our members, has got a housing development that won the Sterling Prize for Architecture and High Sustainability. And the development is designed to the stringent Passing House standard, which means that houses use very little additional energy for heating or cooling. This is the sort of innovation that we believe our smaller cities can achieve. And I just want to touch on skills and business, because one of the most important issues for us is that in many cases, our cities are homes for traditional industries which are declining, and there is a major task in reskilling and in helping to create new business. And one of our arguments is devolution of power down to our cities is absolutely crucial to develop the local economy. One of the problems we have, I think, in our country is that the government wants to centralise everything, unfortunately, and that leaves little scope for local innovation, and particularly on the business and skill side, where we understand more the opportunities that are available to us, and want to argue more about greater devolution of business rates to us. At the moment, business rates in many places are collected by us but passed over to central government, and those and our experience is that we need more resources at local level that we can have a greater share in the direction of. So that was a brief canter through, but I wanted now to just give you some concrete examples. Stephen, if you could just put up the slides. This is a good example, hopefully, of Anglo-Irish cooperation, right, about how we want to unlock potential. And of course, the first slide I wanted to show you is basically the sort of full scope of our members and the urban regeneration projects that they're involved in. And if we could just move to the next slide, please. This is Lincoln, one of our smaller members, but you can see the vibrant footfall in the local centre and the way in which they're seeking to utilise their role, which is extremely important to us as a bridge between the rural and the urban area. Lincoln gets an awful lot of footfall from people coming into the city from the surrounding countryside. And we play a crucial role, we believe, in the regeneration of rural areas as well as urban areas. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Now, this is an example of what Bradford has sought to do in terms of using a traditional city centre, but in terms of modernising it and making it more exciting to people at night. Now, all of that, of course, is barely used at the moment, but once we come out of lockdown, Bradford believes that town hall will become a vibrant centre for community use, and with government resources, they can rekindle it as an effective area to visit. Can I move on to the next slide, please? This is Sunderland. And I've just included this one to give you an example of the sort of scope of what we're talking about. Sunderland is a traditional sort of manufacturing sort of area where Nissan cars are now based. And yet they've got a very highly developed centre, which is based on retail opportunity. And all those retail opportunities are under threat, I think, as a result of the actual pandemic, and we are concerned about the absence of shops in that area that are going to reopen. And I just want to move on to the next slide, please. But one of the things that we've done as key cities is use our traditional areas as an opportunity for new green policies. And this one is an example of an old railway line in Salford that was used to transport the coal from the coal mines to the areas for distribution across the country. Those closed many years ago, but what we've done is converted the railway line into a footpath and now into a cycleway that people can actually enjoy the countryside and get out in a way that is conducive to getting people healthier and getting people to experience the outdoors. So you can use traditional areas for improvement of the environment, but also for opportunities such as green travel. Can we move on to the next one, please? Now, this is Preston. And the development of a port in Preston, which was used for traditional transport, is now being used as a marina. And again, it is an example of local authority entrepreneurship, of actually developing that with support from central government. And I think the message we want to get over time and time again is, if you give us the resources, we can achieve your objectives of regeneration. But what you've got to do is to give us the flexibility and opportunities to do the work that we're actually doing. So if I could just move on to the next slide. This is the new University of Wolverhampton campus. Again, a partnership between higher education and the local council. The university wanted a new campus, needed a new campus, and the council again, actually created the opportunity for that university to thrive. And you can see that this is quite an exciting development in the heart of the town centre, and is actually an important part of the Wolverhampton strategy, is to make the university an integrated part of the town centre. Can we have the next slide, please? Now, this some of you may be familiar with, and I couldn't resist putting in a site about how urban regeneration can work in a traditional area. This is Salford Docks, or what used to be Salford Docks. This is now Media City, where the BBC has put a lot of its development outside of London. So we worked with broadcasters, again, as key cities, to create new opportunities in terms of trying to work on a partnership basis. This was centred originally around the Lowry Theatre, which won the Sterling Prize and is thought of as a very innovative theatre design. But we used that as a basis to kickstart the regeneration of this particular area. It's now the case that, and it's a very boring statistic I love telling people, more people now employed in Media City and the surrounding area than was ever employed at the docks. And it's actually created an employment opportunity for significant numbers of people. I'll just move on to the next slide, please. This is another example of innovation by a city council. This is Kirklees. Now, some of you may be scratching your head a bit about where Kirklees actually is. I could probably conduct a quiz on some strange names that we've given to local authorities in Britain, but it is actually Huddersfield. And again, you see that it's created office space, which has been tremendously successful in being delivered, and again, in creating a new opportunity. All this, of course, happens, and I noticed there's some references on chat to financial autonomy. We think we're badly off in terms of financial autonomy, but I suspect we may be better off than Irish local government. We still collect what's called the council tax, and we can utilise that money for our purposes. But we also, of course, face strictures from the central government on how we can actually spend that money. And unfortunately, we would argue that central government is too prone to interfere in local decisions. We're also, and I don't know if this is an issue in Ireland as well, we're also a bit concerned that the government appears to be allowing local MPs to interfere a great deal in local decision making. And one of the things we're lobbying central government about is to make sure that the local council is in the driving seat to deliver these initiatives. Very often we find MPs of all political parties objecting to particular developments or particular schemes, and we have quite a complex series of negotiations. So with that, the final slide in terms of this presentation, this just gives you an idea of the number of authorities that are involved in this. And we've got 4 new members this year. as a result, I believe, of the effective lobbying that we're doing. We've commissioned research projects from Metro Dynamics and ING, and we've commissioned lobbying activity to make sure that our voice is being held collectively. And it is a difficult situation for me sometimes as chair of key cities. I sometimes feel like Secretary General of the United Nations, because there are different political perspectives within the group, and keeping them all together is an important part of my task. But ultimately, we've got a key message to get over to government, which is about our role in regeneration, about our role in terms of building back the local economy, particularly on the business side and the skills side, and about getting a message across that central government can't do everything without local support and innovation. I believe I've shown you in a sort of whistle-stop tour that it is possible for local government to innovate. It's important it works in partnership with developers and architects. That's been the key to all of the successes I've described to you. But ultimately, local government needs to be a driving force behind regeneration and dealing with the economic crisis that I suspect both of our countries are going to find ourselves in the next few months. So I'm here to learn. I'm sure you'll give me some of the messages about what we can learn from Ireland, but I was also hope that there are some lessons there about innovation and enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I found that really interesting. I'm sure most of our audience did. In fact, one of the reasons we have so many speakers from both the UK and Europe today is precisely to share that knowledge in both directions, both Ireland to UK and Europe the UK to Ireland. So your contribution was exactly on the button in terms of what we were looking for. So thank you. While I'm going to deal with questions at the end, there is one commentary from Hank Bowman. You probably empathize with. I'll just try and bring it up here now. He makes the comment that if I can find it, there's so many of them coming in now. Local and regional level understand much better what is needed in their towns and cities. Proof is available everywhere in Europe. John Merry is absolutely right. UK examples, West Midlands Combined Authority, Sheffield and beyond, Leeds, Bradford, key cities is a great initiative. So again, stop paying tax to central government. Oh, actually, sorry, it's Stuart Turner, not Hank. It is for Hank Bowman. So I thought you'd like to hear that at the end.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I don't think we have an option in terms of the taxation situation. The way that the Local Government Act is structured is that if we stop paying tax, unfortunately, they'd have an opportunity to effectively take the money from our bank accounts anyway. So okay. No, I'd love to be able to do that. And as a natural rebel, yes, but unfortunately, I don't think it's feasible.
Okay.